The thru-hiking season is officially underway, and although there are a lot of people out there already, there are still some people getting ready to leave here in the next couple weeks or the next month or so. So if that is you, if you're getting ready to go out on a long trail this upcoming spring and summer, here are 15 quick last-minute tips to help you maximize your time out there. Tip number 1, wake up early in the morning and start hiking as soon as the sun comes up. You'll definitely want to maximize the daylight hours that you have out there, and it's a lot more enjoyable to hike in the early morning before it gets too hot, before the sun gets too high in the sky. Knock out a few miles before the heat of the day kicks in, and then that way you're on track to get to your campsite or get to wherever you're going, and you don't have to stress about running out of daylight or being tired or hungry or whatever it might be. Just get those miles out of the way real early on and set a good pace for yourself right from the start. Tip number 2, don't be afraid to push yourself physically. Now, this is not to say hike through injuries, but there will be a lot of times where your feet are hurting or your legs are tired or whatever it may be, and you're not injured, you're just tired or in pain. Don't be afraid to push yourself through that. Part of the fun of going out there is testing yourself, seeing what your limits are, seeing what you're capable of, both physically and mentally, and those two things are related. So don't be afraid to push yourself. It will be difficult at times. Just do it in a smart way that doesn't get you injured. Tip number 3, make a plan but be flexible. There will definitely be times where you plan to be somewhere at a certain date or whatever it is that you want to do, and something will pop up that might prevent that, whether that's how you're feeling or an injury, how the people you're with are feeling or what they want to do. It could be something totally out of your control, like some environmental disaster, fire, whatever it may be. Just be prepared to be flexible. Not everything is going to go your way, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you should never plan on anything. Definitely make plans, but just be prepared that things will not always go exactly the way you plan, and that is okay. Tip number 4, this is a huge one for maintaining a positive mindset out there, and that is focus on your short-term goals. Focus on what is immediately in front of you. Focus on your next water point, your next campsite, and your next town or resupply point. Don't get caught up in looking weeks or months down the road about how much further you have to go or anything like that. Just keep focusing on the short goals, and once you keep hitting those over and over, eventually that long-term goal, that terminus, will suddenly be upon you before you realize it. The best way to get overwhelmed is thinking about how much you have left to go. So don't think about that. Think about what is immediately in front of you and focus on one day at a time. Tip number 5, keep a journal or some sort of documentation of your daily activities. This was really important for me. This was a ritual I did every single night before I went to bed. I just took in my notes app on my phone. I just wrote down what happened during the day, anything that stood out, how I was feeling, the miles I did, where I was camping, whatever it was. And that way, when the trip is over, you can go back and look through that and remember things that you would have forgotten otherwise, people you met along the way, or maybe really cool campsites that you would have forgot about. And then I would also add pictures to those notes. So I have a whole roll-up of the day and 3 or 4 pictures that I took during that day to help me remember that. If writing is not necessarily your thing, you can always do a voice memo or a video of yourself talking about the day. I just found that writing's easier in the event that you're sharing a campsite with people and you don't want to be talking about your day or how you're feeling while there are other people around. Either way you want to do it, I would highly recommend recording every single day you're out there because even though every day sounds awesome and you think you'll never forget it, they all start to blend together at some point. So once you get off the trail, it's a really cool memento to look back on those journal entries and remember where you were on certain days and things that you would have forgot otherwise. Tip number 6, and this goes with remembering your journey, and that is take pictures with or of other people. Your camera roll is going to be filled with beautiful landscapes, depending what trail you're on, I guess, but your camera roll will be filled with nature shots or selfies of you with mountains in the back or whatever it might be. But don't forget to take pictures with or of the other people that you meet out there, because once you part ways, you might never see them again, and at least you have that memento of them. Out of the dozens or maybe even hundreds of really cool thru-hikers that I met out there, I think I had pictures with about 7 or 8 of them total. So that's something that I kind of regret that I didn't do more of. It can be awkward, especially if you only have met a couple times, you know, asking people to take a picture together. But yes, definitely would recommend fill that camera roll with pictures of other people and not just pictures of nature, because all your pictures of landscapes, again, kind of blend together at some point. Tip number 7, plan your next day the night before. So when you're laying in bed at night, take your phone out. Most people are going to be using Far Out. Open up the route planner mode and click where you're camping, and then figure out where you're going to be going next. And it will tell you the mileage to the 10th of a mile, and you can look at the entire elevation profile for your next day. This is a really good way to mentally prepare yourself for the next day, kind of know what to expect. So when you wake up, you can say, okay, I have a really hard climb first thing in the morning, and then the rest of the day is going to be easy. Or if you take a look at the water points, or maybe there's a really cool viewpoint, you can say, all right, I'm going to take a break at this lake or stop at this viewpoint and have lunch, and blah, blah, blah. So that way you kind of have something to look forward to, and you know generally what's coming up. That way you're not caught off guard when suddenly you have a 10-mile climb to do and you had no idea that you were going to be doing it that day. Tip number 8, set goals or challenges for yourself along the way. This is specifically to the act of hiking is what I'm talking about. You might have personal goals, but I'm talking about physical challenges, whether that's how many miles you can hike in a day. Maybe that's getting from one place to one place in a certain amount of days. Maybe it's a 24-hour challenge, whatever it may be. Set a couple goals along the way that will really push you physically so that you can say, wow, I can't believe that I did a 50-mile day, or I can't believe I did a 30-mile day 4 days in a row, or something like that. Whatever it may be, force yourself to try and do something that right now you might not think you're physically capable of doing. One of my personal favorite days on trail was my 24-hour challenge, where I did over 73 miles in one day, one 24-hour period. I was beat to crap by the end of it, but had you told me at the beginning of the hike, hey, you're gonna do over 70 miles in one day, I would have told you, heck no. But you get stronger, you set goals for yourself, you work up to that, and then suddenly you're capable of doing things you never thought you'd be able to do, and that is a very rewarding experience. Tip number 9, and I hope this goes without saying, but supercharge your water with electrolyte powders or tablets. Regular water is great for most people, but when you're out there, you're going to be sweating like a pig most of the day, and you need something to replenish those electrolytes throughout the day. So get whatever brand it is that you prefer. Personally, I prefer Element. I've tried every flavor. They taste the best to me. They make me feel the best. But you can use whatever it is that you want. Make sure that you're getting all those electrolytes you need and that you're staying hydrated out there, because you will be sweating way more than normal, and it's very important to keep yourself hydrated, especially if you're in an area where water is not as ample. Another thing I would recommend is mixing caffeine tablets into your electrolyte powder. Some of the electrolyte powders or tablets have caffeine in them. You can also use like a Mio Energy that has caffeine in it, or you can buy those little like single containers for like lemonade, but it's not lemonade, it's usually some other flavor that has caffeine in it. Mix that with your electrolytes. It makes it taste better, and you get that little caffeine boost without having to stop and make coffee. Tip number 10, explore the towns that you pass through. Don't just go in and go to the Dollar General and leave unless it's a really boring town. A lot of the places along the way are really cool, and I would recommend taking some time to go to a local restaurant or museum or whatever it might be, something in that town that is specific to that area. Talk to the locals, get some recommendations, learn some history. There's a lot of good things to learn and see along the way. It just adds an element to the trail that is pretty unique, because you're stopping these places one time, you learn about it, and you pass through, and maybe you learn something that you'll remember the rest of your life. Tip number 11, spend time learning things while you're on trail. This is if you have earbuds, you listen to music a lot. Music is great. I listen to hundreds of hours of music on the trail. But there is plenty of time to listen to other things like audiobooks and podcasts. I would definitely use at least some of the time that you're out there to try and learn new things from those sources. I listen to a handful of audiobooks, a couple hundred hours of podcasts, learning different things about real estate and finance and philosophy and things that interest me personally. You can learn whatever it is that interests you personally, and it just kind of breaks up the monotony of music. You know, it can get old listening to the same thing for that many hours at a time. But while you're out there and you have that much free time, you might as well spend some of it learning about the things that you are interested in. Tip number 12, download the waypoint photos and use the route planner tool on Far Out. So I mentioned the route planner earlier, but Download the waypoint photos so you know what the things that you're looking for look like. You can look at the campsite photos and determine whether or not that's going to work for you. The descriptions aren't always great, or if there's a spring or a water source that you don't know where exactly it is, having just a picture of it can kind of help you find that when you get there. And then with the route planner tool, like I said, you can look at the mileage that you did for that day and you can see the elevation profile for that day. You can plan your days out a couple days in advance. So you make a route, you name it, whatever it is. I did mine on the dates. So you make one that says May 5th, and then you make one that says May 6th, and then you make one that says May 7th. And then that way you generally know what the next 3 days are going to look like. And also when you're done with the trail, you have a record of where you hiked every single day. So I can look back and say, oh, on May 5th, I was at this location, I did this many miles, and this is what I passed, which is also, in my mind, that's kind of a cool thing to look back on. Tip number 13, replace your shoes before you feel like you need to. I would definitely recommend taking care of your feet and your knees and your back, and the best way to do that is to make sure that the shoes you're wearing are still worthy, are still trail worthy. I saw a lot of shoes out there that had zero tread left on the bottom. The soles were coming unglued from the rest of the shoe, just all sorts of crazy stuff. You definitely don't want to let it get to that point. Taking care of your feet and your body is the most important thing you can do. So keep track of the miles that you put on those shoes and keep a general eye on the condition of them, and make sure that you replace them at a reasonable time, not after they have already fallen apart or completely failed you. Tip number 14, cowboy camp whenever possible. If you've been following the channel for a while, this might sound like a biased kind of tip, but it's really not, and here's why. Because when you cowboy camp, it takes you less time to set up, you get a super cool view of the stars given that it's not cloudy, and in the morning when you wake up, you have less crap to pack up before you leave. So really it is just more efficient. There's no reason not to unless it's going to rain or unless there are a million mosquitoes. I don't know why you wouldn't do it, but hey, to each their own. This is just my tips and tricks. And last but not least, tip number 15 is appreciate what it is you're doing out there. Make the most of the ups and the downs and just enjoy every day that you're on the trail. This is such a unique experience no matter where you're going, what trail you're doing. Just make the most of it, enjoy it. There will be some hard days, but try and laugh it off or find the positives in that day, because it will be over before you know it. You'll be back to real life and you'll once again be longing for the trail. So there you go, 15 last minute tips for your thru hike no matter where you might be going. I appreciate you guys watching this video. This will be the last of the Thru-Hike series, but I will continue to make backpacking content. So if you aren't subscribed already, I would encourage you to do that. Again, I appreciate you guys watching and look forward to seeing you on the next one.